My name is Ethan. I am in my 30s, a tall, strong man, married to my wife, Emily. Her looks are reminiscent of modeling. Now let me tell you a little bit about someone else, my mother-in-law, Victoria Bennett. She too is a beautiful woman, and in her 50s she is stunning enough to turn the heads of even the young men on the street. I confess I've always noticed that. Even my friends joked about it, saying, if she were 10 years younger, I would choose her over Emily. Emily's character is not for everyone, flashy, demanding, career-focused. She often insisted that I take Victoria outdoors with me, because Emily loved her job more than anything. She was always immersed in projects, meetings, and tight deadlines, leaving no time for leisure activities like gardening. So Victoria and I often traveled to the cottage together. We'd leave early in the morning to avoid traffic. I would drive and she would sit next to me and talk quietly about life, talking about her past and thinking about the future. Her voice was pleasant, soothing, and filled with warmth, not harsh like Emily's. I treasured those trips more than I'd like to admit. When we arrived, Victoria would go straight to the garden to tend the tomatoes and strawberries, leaning over the beds in her summer dress. It stirred something in me that I tried to suppress. After all, she was my wife's mother. But the thoughts would return, especially in the evenings when she showered after working in the garden. The scent of fresh soap mixed with the smell of earth hung in the air, and it was hard to get rid of the feelings. One day it started as usual. I was cutting the grass, and she was working in the garden, her hands deftly tending the plants. In the evening, Victoria was preparing dinner on the veranda, setting the table with graceful movements. Suddenly the wicket creaked, and our neighbor, Margaret Hill, entered the house. They chatted for a while, laughing over old stories, after which Victoria approached me. Ethan, Margaret is inviting me to her birthday party. Let's go, she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I waved her off. What am I going to do there? I'll just stay here and rest. She left and I sat down to watch TV, sipping the vodka that Victoria had thoughtfully left behind. A few hours passed and the gates slammed shut. I heard laughter and looked outside to see Victoria returning, wobbling slightly on her feet. She had obviously enjoyed her time at Margaret's party. She leaned on me for support, and I helped her up onto the porch. She smelled of wine and perfume, her eyes clouded and twinkling with something unspoken. She spoke softly, her tone unusually gentle, and her lips curved in a faint smile. Then she suddenly pressed herself against me. Her warmth, her scent, the way she hugged me. Everything blurred. Before I realized it, our lips met. It was like fire. I carried her to the bedroom, where she whispered something inaudible, clinging tightly to me. Everything else happened in silence, just our heavy breathing and the creaking of the bed. In the morning I woke up early, my head was buzzing. My first thought was, what have I done? Victoria was in the shower, her movements deliberate and her face pale as she stepped out of the shower. She avoided making eye contact, clearly embarrassed, though she didn't seem to remember everything. At breakfast, she sipped her tea in silence before she finally spoke. Ethan, did I go straight to bed last night? Yes, I lied. You fell asleep as soon as you got on the bed. She nodded in relief, but there was a shadow lurking in her eyes. The rest of the day passed without incident. She worked in the garden. I did minor chores, my thoughts ran in circles. But something changed. An invisible heaviness hung between us. The ride home was silent. She stared out the window and I focused on the road. We didn't talk about it, not that day, not ever again. It became an unspoken truth, a silent contract between us that no one could break. After that night, our trips to the cottage became infrequent. When we did go, Emily always took Emily with her, as if Victoria was afraid to be alone with me. When she visited our house, I would sometimes catch her questioning look, as if I didn't realize if it was a dream or reality. I quickly averted my eyes, pretending to be distracted. Shame gnawed at me, eating away at the edges of my conscience. Time passed, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Not just about the night itself, but how one moment could change everything, casting long shadows over the days that followed. Outwardly, life continued as before, family routines, holidays, meals together. But something invisible remained between us, the guilt, the silence, and the weight of what could never be undone. One day Emily asked why we had stopped going to the cottage so often. There was a hint of curiosity, perhaps even suspicion, in her voice. I'd been busy with work, I replied, but it wasn't true. No excuse seemed to fit me. Every time I passed the station, the memory of that night, the moment that changed everything, clenched in my chest. The once familiar road to the cottage now seemed alien, each turn a reminder of the unspoken secret that hovered between us like a ghost, forever changing the fabric of our lives.